Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2 with a 3-time and current world champion and widely considered to be the greatest player of all time. The Zerg in the red, the finisher. It's Serral, facing off against the only other player in that conversation, the 9-time GSL champion, the Terran in the blue. The man, the myth, the Maru. In a best-of-7 Terran versus Zerg showdown as part of the playoffs to Pigsty Festival number 7 with $10,000 on the line. And before we get started, it'd be incredible if you could smash that like button, maybe even subscribe. And we kind of the algorithm. And Jimmy, what do we have? Jimmy. 1,816 likes on this video, on this cast. And I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways, because I don't know what else I'd do with my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully, you've had a good day so far. And hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. As Maru, being Maru, went command center first, cutting a few extra corners to get a bit of an extra edge to start things off. And that's just Maru in a nutshell. And quickly expanding out of that nutshell into what I assume is a larger shell and some sort of crab or turtle-esque fashion. And probably turtle is more accurate with the way he's been playing lately. Maru has struggled against Serral. And that's just a period at the end of that sentence. But that period seems to have ended. Because the last time they faced in the League Cup Grand Finals, another $10,000 tournament, Maru with a decisive victory. Though some incredible games that went back and forth. It does feel like Maru has solidified his place as that top Terran who can compete with Serral, alongside Clem, but in such a very different way. Whereas Clem is constant aggression, a swarm of bees attacking you from every angle. Maru just is a rock that you break yourself upon. Maru, obviously inspired by some other Dutch content creators, is just getting upgrades as quick as possible. Double +1/+1 engineering bay. Well, Serral gets in with a Zergling because of course he does. Somehow he passes the security checks with a single ling. And we'll see the double engineering bay. He'll see the lack of starport. He'll see the 3rd command center. But will he see why kids love the taste of Cinnamon Toast Crunch? And also, what he can do about it. It's already past the point any sort of aggression is really a viable option. And it's a massive risk. Even though there isn't a starport, Maru has Hellions. And did he lose the Reaper? Indeed he did. 1 Zergling, 1 Reaper so far. Just keeping tabs. Which is going to be difficult as time goes on, I'm sure. But Serral is not one to spontaneously decide on a roach all-in. Not to put all his literal and metaphorical eggs in one basket. But instead, realizing that Maru, without a starport for so long, has no real opportunity to get past the defensive line. Or even really put on some pressure. Historically, and currently, in most regards, it is not ideal to let the Zerg just do what they want. Alright? They'll get 50, 60, 80 drones in 5 minutes, 6 minutes, Serral going on. But Maru, with absolutely no shame, but plenty of command centers. A 4th command center is on the way, not too far behind Serral's 4th hatchery. And, well, it looks like game 1 is going to be the most dramatic and possibly most booming of macro games. Thank you. Baneling Nest is on the way. It's one of those situations that the longer we spend building up, the more dramatic the explosion will be afterwards. At least, that's what they tell me. And, a 2nd factory, 2/2 upgrades. Serral ends up not too far behind when it comes to the upgrade count. Starting those Evo chambers pretty much the moment he spotted the engineering base. One Overlord taken out. In the first non-scouting unit, well, I guess an Overlord still technically is. Mutas? Wow, I did not expect that. And a heavy mid-game muta play is... So, mutalisks have oftentimes, in recent times, been considered more of a muta risk, as They are incredibly fragile creatures, and it takes less than half a second for you to accidentally fly over a couple Widowmons and a dozen Marines and get their numbers cut down close to 0. Of course, they're still a danger, still a threat, and honestly, the lack of prevalence of mutas, which I could have phrased better, but, you know, we have time. The reason they're not chosen may be their strength here. Maru, no turrets, not even thinking about mutalisks, as Serral is pretty rare to use them nowadays because of those kind of inefficiency and risky reasons. But getting a little bit of an edge, he already has enough Ling Bane on the ground to easily drive back the medevacs, as Maru just already has a 4th command center with a plan. We're just speedrunning it. This is almost no rush 10 minutes. They're just kind of slapping each other around a little bit with Lings and Banes and a few Marines, but the real action's happening back at home. The infrastructure is coming together. The Factorio production lines, as Maru goes to 7-8 barracks. He's got 2 factories with drilling calls for Widowmons. A 5th command center is on the way. Meanwhile, Serral with a dozen mutas in production. And if he can evade Maru for just a few more seconds, that scan, there's going to be a lot of those. Did he notice? Did Maru notice? Did he see it? Technically, the scan was there, but you're not staring at it the whole time. Rarely are you staring at it for more than the first few seconds in most cases. And that means Maru is going to be completely blindsided by the mutas. And they will do damage and allow Serral to maybe retake control of the momentum, assuming he ever lost it at all. The mutas are still waiting, and Maru is, well, the mutas have gathered, a dozen of them, easily enough to rip through mineral lines without turrets or anything else to defend. On the front line, the Queens getting blasted by the Widowmons, but the SCVs are already pulled off the line. There's a single Widowmon here to defend. He might be able to get the armory. Serral queues it up around. He's still trying to deal with everything at the front. And the Widowmon going to take a big bite out of the mutalisk, but also spray over a lot of the SCVs. And doing critical damage to many of them. 16 SCVs dead. And Maru already on the run. I'm not going to say on the ropes, as there's a lot to fall back to and a ton of production. And the mutas are already kind of being boxed out by the Widowmons themselves. Almost nothing else happening, and that's the real struggle here, is doing anything else while making sure your mutas don't get completely exploderated by Widowmons and then shredded by Marines. But as soon as the Widowmons are driven out, it clears up the minefield. And I mean, look at the map. The creep metastasizing across. He's already got 80 creep tumors. Like, spread throughout. But it's at the point that the creep tumors are enough of an obstacle that maybe they could actually slow this down on their own. Usually, they're barely a speed bump. But Thor's on the way. The reactor's silent at the moment as Maru's still building up his infrastructure. Now, here's the thing. Mutas don't age well, and many times against Maru especially, they don't age at all. But you now have 20 mutalisks as part of the composition. That's 40 army supply. That is over a third of Serral's potential army supply. And those mutas can't really take a heads-up fight without getting their heads probably blown off. So, of course, Serral does have about 2/3 of the map, and he's looking for more. Banelings rolling in. And on the right side as well, a few Zerglings out in front trying to drag out some Widowmons, but no Widowmons there. Maru's planetary will be smashed by some cursory Banelings. Smashed on the 3 o'clock position as well. No, I didn't repeat myself. That's 2 planetaries in just more than that seconds. And Serral, objective accomplished. And all this happening while the hive is nearly complete. It's done. And what's it gonna be? Maru scans the main base, sees the infestation pit, but he doesn't see the hive, which Serral chose to build at the natural, which I actually very much agree with, so it doesn't get sniped off by drops later on nearly as easily. 3-3 is going to finish for Maru, giving him the greatest upgrade advantage he's gonna have for the rest of the game, because getting to a hive is the prerequisite for getting +3 upgrades for Zerg, whereas it just takes that armory for Terran. And of course, Maru started off so early. The mutas still working their way around the south side. The armory in a precarious position that's not usually vulnerable. But Serral, an expert at probing for those weaknesses. And back at home, an ultralisk cavern is the choice alongside Adrenal Gland. Serral going to ground, about as heavy as possible. And the Muta's clearing up some of the mines on the edge. He has more than enough to snipe them off. Still 17. He's only lost 5 throughout all this. Not a single building, not a single worker. Creep tumors don't get counted in that tab. And honestly, he hasn't lost too many of those either. Meanwhile, the Lings and Banes are crashing through yet again. Rolling through with the move command of the Banelings to maximize their effectiveness, but unfortunately, a single Widowmon will take out another dozen or so. That was 8 at the end of the day. And so far, this battle, about even, but it's about objective gaming again. Serral, he doesn't have much in the bank, but he's continually keeping Maru up those 4th and 5th bases, the outlying ones that are so important for continuing this level of production. Maru is mining out of the main base. The natural, actually looking pretty okay, mostly because Serral ransacked it a while ago. But Serral has grabbed now at least half the bases on the map. And he's trying to deny Maru having even a fraction of that. Don't be pedantic, all right? I know everything's a fraction of something. How many fractions of likes and subscribes have you added? Well, things slow down just a bit. By necessity. Maru unable to move out, and Serral unwilling to commit to moving in too dramatically. The age of mutas seems... well, the Thor is just wiping the mutas out of the sky. And, well, that's a lot of supply freed up, is what we'll say on the more generous side of things. This mech army, but just wipes out 14 mutas, 26 Banes, and I feel obligated to mention once again, Banelings only show up if they're killed before they attack. So those are Banelings that likely didn't find a good target, if a target at all. Banelings that attack and die succeeded, so therefore we're not lost, which is a very weird quirk of the units lost indicators. But a Nidus network is on the way, and somehow we're going to shove some Ultras in there, I think, which, you know, work up to it. But Lings and Banes roll it into the center base, but this time around, Maru looks like he has enough to defend. The dregs of the mutas left behind and ghosts are now in production. Serral has kept up the momentum. He's kept the pressure on, but he has done it through great cost. He does not have the economy to just rebuild into that sort of 300 supply army repeatedly. The Ultras, surprise. The Ultras show up to the party uninvited, but, I mean, who's going to kick them out? The Ghosts are now here, though, speaking of. Snipes the Overseer. And Serral not going for the more, very clever. Splits off the Zergling. A Greater Spire is on the way as well. Tactical Niduses. He's going for both contested corners. So Serral will have the more than half map bases. So far, Maru has lost 8,000 resources less. But if he can't mine, and Serral, the caustic spray melting through the planetary fortress, the Ultras gonna chop through it much more quickly. Knocks out the base. Maru. Did Maru even lose units? Yeah, he lost units. Like, a few. 5 Marines, 2 Marauders, and a siege tank alongside the planetary. Wait. Maru also killed one of his own Thors, so I somehow that counts on that side. Just knocking things around like Ultras in the studio today. Sometimes I feel like it. Not in a good way. But Maru moving forward. Still contesting the rich Vespine base, of which Serral has mined a chunk of the resources already. Burrows on the way. Infestors have been added in. Serral is mining from both rich Vespine bases, which don't have more gas, but they mine twice as quickly. Widow mines, and suddenly he has the Oversight Committee. Serral with 14 Overseers. That rogue-like late game, making it almost impossible to clear out the Changelings. Maru's trying, but the sheer Changeling count as Serral continues to spam them out. It's almost impossible to get rid of them. It's like scans, but a little more unwieldy for the Zerg. But only 4 orbital commands right now for Maru. He hasn't had that sort of Iron Bank economy, that huge pool of scans and mules to drop constantly that makes it almost impossible to break. No, Serral has limited him. He's knocked out half a dozen bases. He's continually forced out the scans both for the creep and for the infestors. but he hasn't broken Maru's army. And Maru is continually improving it. Here comes the Infestor from the north side. There goes the Infestor from the north side. The Ultra's coming in from the left. The Ghost retreat to the right. Overseer's over the top. Infestor's trying to get close, but one Ghost lands an EMP. And Serral is forced to back off. Is he really gonna... The Nidus is in a precarious position. Throws out a fungal, catches a few of the Ghosts. Another Infestor, no energy there. Ultras get caught up. The Changeling's kind of blocking in some of Serral's own units. Retreats behind the Siege Tank, lines up some more shots. The volley softens up several of the Ultralists, and the Siege Tanks will do the rest of the work. And Serral suffering from severely diminishing returns now. 2 bases will be taken out without Serral able to strike back effectively. And once the Ghost count... See, 13 Siege Tanks. Soon to be with +3 mech weapons, already +2 mech armor. Maru dotting the field with Widow Mines to zone out and thin out the Zerglings and Banelings. The Ghosts, and with the scans constantly from the orbital commands, of which, as I mentioned, he doesn't have as many as he'd like, but he has enough. Serral is going to shift the tech yet again. 8 Broodlords in production. 7 Spore Quellers. Is he oversupplying, or is he just building mass Spore Queller? He's at 88 drones exactly. Maru at 89 SCVs. A nuclear missile is in production. How many? So, Maru has fully embraced the Brood War style. I know some of you AARP/Brood War fans out there know what I'm talking about. But the bio into mech, where, except the Ghost kind of take the place of the Science Vessel from Brood War. Both with EMP and the ability to take out strong Zerg units with Snipe. And also weak Zerg units with Gun. Meanwhile, though, Maru actually completely out of position to defend on the right. But very much in position to wipe Serral out on the left. So, he may lose this planetary in the corner. The Siege Tanks are a liability against the Broodlords, which is why I think Serral has shifted into this more meandering yet... air-based composition. He wiped out most of the Thors. He's got Neuroparasite on the way. So even if Thors are added back into the composition, look at the production tab, it won't necessarily be the saving grace for Maru at least. And the Banelings rolling through, interrupting a lot of the snipes. Uses a cloak. There should be enough detection, but the Overseers didn't quite go far enough forward. And Serral will knock out the 9 o'clock base. Sorry, the 3 o'clock base. And lose the 9 o'clock. Microbial Shroud is on the way. Serral banking slightly more money. Widow Mines being cleared out. Also very good at clearing Widow Mines. This is happening. Feels like this happens in every Serral Maru series. Where a command center will try to land on a hatchery, and then we'll have a whole lot of debate over what sovereign land is. Typical Terrans. Meanwhile, a fusion core is on the way for those late-game Terran upgrades, notably advanced ballistics, and probably Caduceus reactor. Oh no, he doesn't have any... So, Maru splits his Vikings to make sure the fungals don't work out. 2 Vikings might be able to actually chase down these Broodlords. How many Queens are there? Just 3 left. And they're all here. The transfuses, the Sporist is scampering forward. The last march of the Spores as... This doesn't seem like a safe place to park, Bob. Just sit down already. Sit down. Okay. Sorry. Unfortunately, though, for Serral, Maru has established himself over to the Western Front. Serral still has... He's ground out more of a bank, but the gas is concerningly similar. We're 20 minutes in, which means the first couple bases are pretty much mined out. For Maru, they're totally mined out, as mules are... So mules are great at getting you the extra income, but there is... Oh. See, I told you... The creep's spreading all the way forward. There's 101 creep tumors on the map currently. Who knows how many there've been throughout with Serral. Despite only having 3 queens... Still, oh, a fungal. Nuclear missile off to the right side. The main army off to the left. Microbial Shroud on the Queens. A few snipes land. Serral Did he hear the nuke? Did he see the nuke? Does he know the nuke? And Maru, if he had fired it at the base, nukes with a surprisingly small radius. If he had fired it at the base, he would have wiped it out, as Serral didn't notice. But fortunately for Serral, it seems like Maru just kind of finger painted that nuke somewhere in the general direction. Honestly. But, you know, the spore crawlers will burrow, but the ghost just comes up and starts shooting at drones, which is, you know, remarkably effective. Okay. He's gonna end up getting several more drone kills. Serral will replace them immediately. He's down to 70. Another nuke on the way. 4 more orbital commands, and 2 more command sensors. The Zerglings, the Thors will be overrun. Not the most agile creatures until they pop into the medevac real quick. There's a few corruptors out in front to help zone out the broods. And Serral, is he actually going to end up... He's building drones. He's going to start mining from the 3 o'clock base. He's even transferring over. Serral also mined a lot of the gas. You know, it's a great game. Not just a good, but a great game. The greatest of all time. Who knows what clickbait will have today. They keep being good, all right? It's not like games just get worse. We don't choose to show games that are actively worse. What I'm saying is, I get the complaints, but it's not wrong. Who knows? Maybe one of these players just blunders their army to its death in the next 2 minutes, and it just kind of ends. But otherwise, it's shaping up to be one of the most... It's already shaped in that way. But the fact we're trading multiple bases multiple times, and not in the let's just murder everyone, but in the we're repositioning and constantly grinding through on either side and trying to figure out what's going to be efficient, what's going to be effective, and what you can afford. And right now, Serral with 8,700, 2,500 in the bank. Maru with 5K, 3K. Notably more gas. Though Serral still has a lot to mine as we get into the more bean counter phase. In fact, he's just now taking gas geysers on some of his bases. I love how Serral prioritized. This gas geyser is pretty much mined out. He prioritized mining gas on his outer bases first. That sort of economic discipline is actually exceedingly rare, despite how important it is, especially in games such as this. So many times we see Zergs who will mine out their first 4 bases and then not even be mining gas at their 5th and 6th until it's already too late. The nuclear missile will drive back the static defense, which is, okay, well, it's not as static for Zerg, but clearly Serral knows where it is. The Queens rambling around. Sorry, covering their bases. Up to 5 now as he's filled in a few more, and we'll probably see more and more Queens added in, as 10,000 minerals and 2,500 gas means that the more expensive gas units are becoming less and less of an option. Serral is mostly mined out of the gas over to the left side. Let's look at the units lost. It's not too bad for Serral. So a base has about 11,000 minerals. It slightly depends, but it's about 11,000 minerals with 8 patches. And 4,500 gas. 2,250 per gas geyser. The rich Vespene only has 2,250 because it only has 1 geyser. So, if Serral ever gets to the point of being over 11,000 minerals less effective, or 4,500 gas, well, that's when we start tallying up how much of these bases we've been able to mine. But again, Maru... Maru is now taking the 9 o'clock as Serral retakes the 3 o'clock. And it appears the clock has moved on significantly since the start of this game. We're 25 minutes in and no closer to a conclusion, as both of them are kind of husbanding their banks in a way that I wish I could participate in. But a volley of scans. Maru now with more CCs than a poorly formatted corporate email chain, and 10 orbital commands, a few other command centers, planetary scattered throughout, another nuclear missile. Where is it? Where is the ghost? Oh, right there. Oh, he sees it. He moves away. Brenda, watch out! Yikes. Meanwhile, Hellbat's burning 80 across the countryside as Maru has stripped out all but the most effective units from his composition. The Nidus network will be disconnected. The Hellbats with blue flame, mineral only, and much harder to kill outright than Marines at this phase of the game. The Medivacs, honestly, probably too many of them. He's got 10 Ghosts, he's got 7 Thors, 10 Hellbats, but Thor's actually getting caught, taking the wrong path right down the center, and the Zerglings will nab him up easily. Still a few siege tanks on the high ground. And somehow, I've never seen the map split. I've seen it split horizontally. I've seen it split vertically. I haven't seen it split diagonally. All right, this is a bespoke half-map scenario, as here on Winter Madness, we're certainly feeling, or at least I am, but that's, you know, every day. So, Maru is slowly but surely building up a stronger and stronger bank, and Maru is it's one bad fight for either side away from total disaster. But Serral loses one infestor, a second gets popped by ghosts, some fungals thrown out, EMPs wash over a couple more infestors, but the Broodlord's going to try to protect this newly acquired and old base for both sides. It is about half the minerals and more than half the gas left, so definitely worth contesting. Almost over any other base on the map at this stage, which is kind of wild. Yanks out a Liberator. Broodlord's moving forward. Thors throws in another one. Fungal. Thors, the Banelings rolling through to try to deal with the Thors. They're all stacked up, blinding cloud. The Ghosts on full retreat. The Thors getting ground down. They can't hit the Broods with the blinding cloud. He's chasing the Ghosts all the way across the map. There's no more siege tanks here to deal with it. One siege is up. The Ghost will survive. But Serral able to box out the Thors in the choke point. And it looked kind of terrible fighting into that for Serral to start. And when we tally it up at the end, it still comes out kind of poorly. But he kept the base at the 3 o'clock. He took out 6 Thors. Maru got 5 Broods, a couple Ultras, and the real cost, honestly, is the Banelings. 56 Banelings throughout that, through all the fire and fury. As Serral diligently mines out the last 30 minerals in this patch. Some turrets on the way, but the cost experience, he's dropping mules. He's like, I'll just mine this and then I'll be done with it. I think he's not even bothering to try to repair. As both sides are incredibly diligently draining the map of resources. Serral long distance mining with 1 drone on a single mineral patch. This is not a planetary fortress, so he can just overrun it. The turret's mostly a placeholder here, and this place will no longer be held. But Maru has rebuilt, as has Serral. Serral with more in the bank, but this army is so hard to beat. You gotta bring it all together. Where are the Vipers? There's a Viper in the mix there. It's so important. It's about, arguably the most important. Snipes come out. Down goes 1 Brood. A Venn diagram of freedom. The Liberators zoning out the infestors and everything else. Maru will clear this out. Zergling counter. Button annoyance. As the worker counts start to dip, but at this point the workers are mostly obsolete. An orbital command will be ripped to shreds, I say, leaving Maru with only 10 to fall back on. Quite a nest egg there. Well, here we are, 30 minutes in, and Maru with a slightly smaller bank. Serral with about the best army he could think to put together. He's able to take out Widow Mines. I don't know how intentionally. That was the last Widow Mine. This is the last Widow Mine. It survived. Still has a chance to get some of the most dramatic things. Some spine crawlers pulling themselves up by their root straps and laying it down on the high ground. But the Thors will contest it. A solar flare on the entire quadrant of the map. Because the biggest danger, as Serral has proven, and Maru, in the simplest and most obvious way, has countered. Serral's burrowed infestors have won him games, have won him tournaments. But if you have 10 orbital commands, I'd love you to argue with me that it's not map hacks with extra steps. As Maru, let's go to the Maru camp. Maru, so it takes 5 orbital commands to scan on cooldown. If you have that, you have the energy. With 10, you could bank up a bit, of course. And,
Our mineral fields depleted. Under attack.
Maru. Man, I always forget how zoomed in the game is until I go back to playing myself. But remember, that's such a key part of all this. And Maru is doing a hostile corporate takeover here. He is aggressively mining with mules with the few mineral patches that are left. We are at 5 digits in the bank, over 4,000 gas. It's almost dead even on that count. But overall, Serral has lost 13,000 more resources, including 3,000 more gas. I don't think he's going to be able to mine that much more. Wait, let's look over. 6,000 more minerals mined. 3,000 more gas. So, the numbers don't lie. And right now, they potentially spell disaster for Serral. But again, how many times do I have to mention? Until we find a conclusion. These are unbelievably technical unit compositions for both sides. This is like lightsaber fighting while doing LSD, I assume. Trying to control ghosts and Thors and liberators and put them all going the right direction, and making sure the infestors don't turn the Thors into your greatest enemy. Meanwhile, of course, infestors and vipers and banelings are all one slight misstep, even a glance in the wrong direction, from being completely obliterated and losing over 1,000 get. Red! Well, that was just Terran. All right, the Hatchery Owner Association meetings are going to be much quieter now. You keep saying that, Brenda, but then you just decide to speak up yourself. Well, someone has to. Sorry. Hive mind took over. There are 12 Thors, 9 Broodlords, 8 Infestors. And, well, yanks in a Liberator. Keeps the Viper very... Oh my... It's so important. There are 2 Vipers. The Vipers are not as critical as the Infestors, but they're the grease here. And without it, there's no chance of Maru slipping. The Blinding Cloud and the Abducts dismantling the more entrenched positions is absolutely critical. He finds the Ghost with 2 Zerglings, another nuke thrown out there. Maru starting to bank up more money. And Serral is... He's out. I mean, there's enough in the bank for both sides to Serral's army value is 11,000 minerals, 7,200 gas. I think Overseers do count, which are of dubious value in a direct fight, though obviously very important. That is, I think that's the highest I've ever seen. Like, because he has Banelings, which are incredibly supply efficient, though, for one attack. Here are the Thors, just scanning constantly, keeping tabs on those Infestors. And Serral, a Zergling counter, and these, they have to be dealt with. It's not a big deal, but it adds up. If he loses his production, it doesn't matter how much you have in the bank, because you cannot rebuild. Even some drones getting in on the action. The Liberators will help hold the door. Maru backs off completely to deal with this. He retreats into his shell. Another volley of scans. The Infestors will wander into them, and I wouldn't be surprised if Maru just continually scans specific 11 orbital commands. We're getting down to it now. I mean, something's gotta give. There's almost no mining left. Banelings crash through the Hellbats. Here come the Ultras. Blinding Cloud. Wombo combo. Goes to the back right corner. Neural Parasite on the Thors, but the Blinding Cloud works both ways. Lines up some shots where the Banelings interrupt most of it. The Thors are dueling with the Broodlords, but the Broodlords are winning the day for now. There's not that much left underneath, though. He has to be careful not to waste his Broodlords for nothing. Knocking down the Liberators. The Thors have been torn down. The Ghosts driven back. The Liberators knocked out. And Serral wins the fight. If it sounded like a big question mark, that's because it is. Serral, though, when it mattered most, he delivers. For the first major fight and first major engagement of the game, I think, Serral with a decisive economic victory. And it didn't cost him too many of his key units. Most of his losses were in Lings and Banes, the things most quickly and easily replaced. Sure, similar amount of resources to anything else, but they don't need to build up energy. They don't take the time a Broodlord or an Ultra takes to replenish. I don't think you could have begged for something more than that. As Maru will scan and drop mules to mine out this base, Serral realizes that the mules will make, you know, right now with 7,500 minerals in the bank, it doesn't seem like such a huge deal for Maru. But this game could easily come down to less than 1,000 minerals. And I feel like Maru, with 25 minerals a pop from each of those mule trips, has mined probably about that much. So if the game comes down to the hundreds instead of thousands of resources, it is the hostile mule drops, the long distance mule trips that potentially make the difference. Maru has refilled. He's got a similar army, as does Serral. He's got the infestor. He has significantly less banelings this time. The banelings so good for zoning out the ghosts. The Ultra's in an awkward spot, and Maru just kind of shoving and forcing the issue. Loses a Viper before it gets any spells off. Another one with a Blinding Cloud. Serral backed into a corner. Gonna force the fight here. The Broodlord's doing terrible, terrible damage. The Thors taking pot shots and a counterattack. Serral decided not to engage heads up. The Ghost lining up a lot of shots, but Serral's still at 200 supply. Neural Parasite. He will lose that Infestor more than likely, but a huge Fungal. And that tank sieging up target fire on the Infestors may lose several more. Microbial Shroud underneath. He comes in for another round. The Ultras will sweep it away. And the Zerglings flooding the field. Maru's under 100 supply. The Broodlords, mostly in autumn colors, but the Ultras will try to chase the Ghost down. Maru's only lost 23 throughout the game, which is kind of ridiculous, considering. The Broodlords, so Maru has enough money to rebuild maybe one more time. Serral is mining from the... Well, Maru is scouring the map. Like this is some sort of 4X game to find more resources, to fund the war effort. There's literally no more mineral patches to drop on. Serral's half of the map is, in about 30 seconds, mined completely out. In fact, the entire map may be mined out. This base at the 3 o'clock has changed hands and claws and appendages like 5 or 6 times. I think one more will decide it. Microbial Shroud. A lot of the Broodlords are badly bruised and the creep is nowhere close. In fact, Serral might just throw the drones into the fray. A Ghost trying to find a shot. How many Overseers left? Still 11 of them. So, enough detection. Maru with a whole bunch of siege tanks yet again. And Serral's out. That's it. He's out. 80 minerals. 80. He can't even make 2 sets of Zerglings. He has no more minerals. That's it. Wow. Wow. There is actually 500 minerals left over here. This is the most, like, literally mining out the entire map. The most literal definition. There's these gas geysers. The minerals are gone. He found some more. He found these more. We're gonna see the entire map. Not a single mineral patch left. Occasionally there's games where players will just forget in their first bases. I'm looking at the mini-map. The drone's trying to mine. There is 500 gas that I guess Maru could mine, but he needs to build refineries, which is that worth it? Oh no, Maru has enough to rebuild again. Serral does not. He can barely rebuild a single unit. How many queens? 1 queens! Yanks and a liberator. This is it. Serral is mining too. Everybody waiting their turn. Even so. Oh, but Maru adding in so many liberators right at the end times. Oh, the Ultras. And another one bites the dust. And another one goes. Serral long distance mining gets enough for maybe another queen or something. He gets enough for one more infestor. There, you can retreat no further. He's running out of real estate. The ghost lining up the shots. Doesn't quite snipe the Viper. What? What a timing for a pause. Oh my god. Wow. But the Thor's blasting away. We do it live from replay, but wow, I'd be so salty. What a way to color this. But, well, make no mistake, Serral is on the ropes. He's had incredible fights, but Maru's just been a little bit too cost-effective. The map, the last mineral patch, is being mined out by both sides, as Serral is backed literally to the final corner of his base. Probably gonna try to use some of the broodlings. Oh no, the ultras wander forward! It's gonna cost both! And there's not, like, he's not building anything more. He can't wait any longer. Parasitic Bomb, the Vipers, he's gonna go forward. The last chance, but the Hellbats forming a biological shield that the Banelings have to roll through, and they're mostly exhausted in the process. The Infestors don't have much energy. He throws out a fungal on the back line. But Maru, how many minerals were left? This was the last mineral patch in the game. Serral taps out with 100 minerals left on the entire map. So how many minerals are there on a map? 160-something thousand. What a... These two. The greatest StarCraft 2 players of all time. There's no doubt in my mind. Not this game, but all of the games. That was like Serral won fights that no one else could. But Maru made it, so he had almost no opportunity to win the war. There were a couple fights before he transitioned fully into the Broodlords and the Ultras that clearly went towards Maru. And usually, that doesn't matter too much. But when you're playing a chess match on the level of these two, losing that extra few thousand minerals and gas clearly mattered. So, Maru takes the lead. What a game. I don't want to say anything. And that's how it starts. I doubt it's how it ends. Well, I know that. That's why we play best. What is this, Serral? Serral, are you crazy? Okay. I thought he was 12. We're going to 10,000 feet. Tarantino's dream. And now... Well, where did it go wrong? I don't think you can point to anything. That was almost perfect from both sides. Like, there was a give and take. There was hidden information. There were strategic decisions. Like, so regularly trading bases. Both players willing to give up ground to gain more later. That is... So, many players are good at giving up ground. You've played the latter, I assume, at some point. It's the strategically retaking it when you are in a much better position to do so. That's the hard part. Most players will find a hill and die on it, for better or worse. But Serral, his final hill was his hive after he mined out the entire map and used every resource. He literally had no options left. Check and mate. That's why we don't play best of ones. I feel like you could probably spend 24 hours breaking down that game. And it wouldn't even be that much longer than the game itself. But no, ain't nobody got time for that. Game 2. Thank you again to Pig. I'm sure you've seen, many of you may have already seen this match at some point. I hope I bring a different angle, a different variety of commentary. But thank you to Pig for yet another incredible tournament funded. And if you want to support more like it, well, I believe he actually fully funded this from crowdfunding. So, not so fun fact, Blizzard limits most tournaments to $10,000 before Blizzard themselves have to get involved in some fashion. I'm not actually sure what the details are, but there's a reason why so many tournaments are $10,000 prize. But what Pig is doing, from my understanding, is he reached $10,000 and then some, which means he's just going to have another Pigfest more quickly. All right, since much of the next tournament is also already funded. So, you can't use a drown. He killed a drown. Hey! Ah! Is that my Bane? Where were you last game? Sorry. You got banelings lying around everywhere. Alright. What I was trying to say was, you can't let him move. You can't kill a drown. Alright? Like. Yeah, he did. I'm sorry. The Zergling's waiting. I love the mutas too. The muta, it feels like it was 2 or 3 different games, all jammed into one. And that is what the best of these two is like, where you have some distinct phases. In fact, there was essentially like the no-rush build-up phase. And then there was the mid-game, which is mutaling Bane into ultras. And then the late game, which extended to the end game, which is something we rarely actually achieve. Oftentimes, the map gets split in half, they build up banks, but a big fight will decide it. But no. The economy decided it. With infinite resources like big game hunters, that game might have lasted hours. Got close already. That might not even be the best game of this series. The best game so far. Okay, alright, we're here. Cloak Banshees, Destiny Cloud Fizz build to start. Barracks Factory Starport, if you're boring. But the 1-1-1 for Maru. Going for a more conventional pre-command center build. And then immediately shifting to McDonald's. Here we go. 2 armories on the way. It's mech time. Simmer down. I know. Some people like mech more than others. But Maru able to dabble in both flavors of Terran and make them both effective and legally distinct. And then, of course, combine them in the later game. But the hardest part with mech, the most dangerous part, is the mid-game. Because the cost of building those factories is 100 gas a pop. The armories are 50. In general, it costs a lot more overhead for the infrastructure. So if you get past that, then you have an army that could potentially be much better. Especially than the Zerg, especially than just Marines and Medevacs against Slings and Banes. Serral is going for roaches. I'm not sure if he was intending on this be. Oh my. Okay, there's Overseer. This is restricted lair space! Oh, good job, Lucille. Thank you. It's my first time. That's not true. That's what I tell them all, though. I don't. What? The Hellbat's burninating through the hatchery. And the Queens, they had a transfuse or two, but at some point it might be better to just rebuild it rather than leave it constantly crippled. The Zerglings fighting Hellbats, which is not very fun for them, but we'll at least whittle it down. Awkward start. Three Banshees with Cloak and soon to be Hyper Shees. Wait, is Serral gonna do a... Ladies, it's time. Don't make it weird. The queens in the overlords, but overlord speed's still like 10 seconds off. They'll expect one of us in the wreckage, sister. I don't. 2 overlords full of queens on the way across the map to deal with the banshees. And Serral trying to just break Maru before he has that sort of infrastructure, before he has the army. And 4 banshees are going to make it very difficult to keep the queens going. There's multiple siege tanks. Maru didn't speed towards hell clones, but instead went for the more siege tank oriented style, which is something different. Well, the banshees will cloak. There is an overseer here. The queen's taking terrible, terrible damage. Dodging into the overlords. Takes out 2, and now down to 2 banshees. The queen's transfusing one another. Might be able to take out the banshees. Serral's struggling to get through the siege tanks, though, very quickly. And more boys are pulled. Zerglings get into the main. 28 SCVs are dead. And this attack, which was off to a bit of an awkward start. Oh, was it overlord drop? So the Zerglings get in behind enemy lines, whereas the queens and ravagers punch through the front. And Serral's queen drop timing is enough to potentially take out Maru entirely. Not just do damage, but right now, 35 SCVs dead. And Maru's down to 40. Now, Serral is macroing it out back at home. He didn't even have roach speed. He was reliant on the Ravagers and the Lings. And the Queens, there's still 2 Ooh, the Ravagers. Did he get 3 shots? No! He needs 3 to kill the siege tank, but every single hit is devastating. The Hellbat's jammed in. How has he not killed the tank? Why won't you die? At a 13, the tank didn't die. 5, 6, 8 Ravagers died on the altar of that tank. And it needs more blood. How does it not die? Why won't you die? There's creep now spreading into what was once Maru's once and future 3rd. 4th base getting nibbled by the Zerglings. And Maru, if that siege tank goes down, Serral can get up the ramp, probably cut off the reinforcements, and likely, if not win the game, do critical damage. But the siege tank lived. 17 kills, many of those Ravagers. After 2 minutes, about dead even on resources lost. At least in terms of that battle. So, where does that leave us? Serral's going Swarm Host with Nidus, which actually makes a ton of sense in this scenario, as Maru is left with a very minimal economy, though he's actually doing exactly what he needs to deal with it. He doesn't know that yet. We also saw Contaminate on some of the upgrades, but I kind of glazed over it because there's so much going on and there's so much that needs to be talked about, and I need to stop doing meta discussion when we need to do micro discussion. So, he cut down the siege tank count, though it's been rebuilt. He limited the economy. And this is a scenario where Maru can't really afford to move out and counterattack or easily deal with Nidus without exposing himself to direct attack. So, perfect scenario for Sir Richard and his band of Swarm Host brethren. And he's even gonna slap some queens in there to get some ancillary creep spread. I love it. Oh, this is genius choice out of Serral. Makes complete sense and isn't even a huge commitment because you need the infestation pit for Hive anyways. There's another Nidus in the main. Didn't bring any detection alongside. Here's the only awkward part, but the creep, the main base being torn asunder. The factory itself could go down. SCVs, he's not repairing. Oh, one SCV split off, but there's still a Nidus in the main. The Hyper Shees, the Speed Banshee's very helpful, but here's an Overseer. The Queens might need to pop into that. You could transfuse the Nidus from the low. Wait, he doesn't have energy. The Nidus at the low ground will be, or high ground will be taken out. The Swarm Host yet again, belching forth. And there's enough of them to be an existential threat. And Serral just finished a Hive, so he's not done. He will not stop. The waves upon waves just drifting across. Gets back into the main base. Gonna cut off some of the reinforcements. Meanwhile, the Ravagers and Roaches over to the right flank. There's just an orbital command. Those SCVs are already dead. They don't know it yet. Greater Spire is on the way. The Broodlords may once again come into play. Magfield Accelerator completed for the Cyclones. Gonna drive back the Roaches and Ravagers. Maru's not dead, and he has 4 orbital commands. With 4 orbitals, you have enough economy to hold it together, but the barrage of locusts, the constant siege of ravagers, and the impending broodlords are making it harder and harder for Maru to hold his position, let alone counterattack. Though that entire wave of swarm hosts was shut down for, I think he got 1 cyclo, which, you know, is better than nothing, but that is a lot of supply committed to the swarm hosts. Okay, and Maru's supply is a lot higher than I expected it to be at this stage, 150. And with the swarm hosts being of dubious strength as time goes on, they were great, and now I'm downgrading them to just good, as they're taking up a lot of the potential. But Serral is maxed out and banking up. The queens are fighting heads up, and the transfuse keeps the Nidus and the queens themselves alive. A single Viking. Another wave in the main, but the Hellbats, 1 or 2 may die. No, not even 1. The 2/2 Hellbats. That is one thing Maru's maintained, is the upgrades overall. He's got 3/3 on the way. He's going to be way ahead of Serral, who's working on +2 attack for melee and ranged. Now potentially just down the center. The swarm hosts haven't actually attacked the base down the center, which just has a moat that we see siege tanks use so often, but Serral... Oh, the Greater Spire spotted Serral. Maru immediately starts 3 Thors. 4 Thors. And however many years ago, we decided that would be the count of the Broodlords. But they have yet to be delivered. Neural Parasite is done. Infestors on the way. Well, plenty of Infestors already out. Some Fungals thrown out. Vipers. 1 Viper in production. But the returns are diminishing from the swarm hosts. He hasn't lost a single one, but they haven't gained much value over the last several minutes. Past the first couple waves, Maru has done an unbelievably good job. He scans the Nidus. You could actually hear the Nidus. You might be like, of course you can hear it. But if you're listening closely, you can hear the direction and, to an extent, the distance of the Nidus in your headphones, or if you're insane, gray speakers on the side of your Windows 98 PC. All right, Grandpa, with your StarCraft Brood War box right next to it. How's the back pain? But Maru has switched to the much more heavy metal sort of composition. The mass, and well, here comes another wave. Fungals thrown out, and the Banelings rolling in right through the Hellbats, allowing the Locust to find a lot more success. The Thors not well equipped to deal with either of these units, but well enough. The Banshees trying to snipe off one of the hatcheries, but the Queen's in position back at home to deal with it. And look at that creep spread. Unbelievable. I mean, believable, but wild that he's back creeping. He's actually connected the creeps. It's just the fog of war is kind of obscuring it. And when the creeps connect, you know what I'm talking about. It's provocative. It gets the people going. Another wave over the top and down the center. Yeah, but the Viper in position, blinding cloud on the siege tanks, allowing the swarm host to find a lot more success on the ground. Or do they? The blinding cloud might have actually worked against him, because otherwise the siege tanks might be a liability. Maru is at 180 supply, but Serral is maxed out with 4K, 2K in the bank. He's up against 7 Thors. I mean, Maru has 3/3. This is not last game, though. He doesn't have Ghosts. He doesn't have Liberators. He does have a Raven, which is mostly to make sure Infestors don't win the game outright with no... Serral has... This is going to be Nidus Swarm number 5 that is currently on the map. Not in total, but currently alive on the map. Getting quite the gigabit network here. Another wave up to the top right corner. The Planetary Fortress. The SCV's pre-pulled. Does he have building armor? He doesn't. But with the Planetary quite well equipped to deal with the Locust. Lings and Banes. The Banshees box out. And again, Serral continually sieging. He has yet to shift to the Broodlords, I think correctly recognizing that Mass Thor is going to be more than well equipped to deal with it. Blinding Cloud, I assume. And my assumption's correct on the siege tank. Meanwhile, well, the Ravagers and Lings and Banes will roll through the mineral line. Maru has had enough. He's gonna force the issue. He's maxed out for like the first time this game. Throws out a fungal. There's nothing to wipe out the energy on those infestors. There's potentially a blinding cloud here. The Ravagers. Now, the infestors in an awkward spot. The amount of swarm hosts. Serral's still maxed out, but this army just punches through. And the infestors are caught. The Banshees are chasing him down. He has enough energy for maybe another fungal or two, throws it out. But he has to deal with the Thors. They're knocking on the door. And, well... Serral's maxed, but his army, where is it? What is it? The swarm hosts are just waiting for their moment. Serral has so much in the bank, but he had so much supply he couldn't even refill it. The locusts are coming in. The Banshees are finally knocked out unceremoniously. And then Maru just, with a single counterattack directly into the heart of the swarm. Serral's swarm hosts. The greatest strength and the biggest liability. The fact he kept them alive so long lost him this game. I am convinced. Serral was so good with his swarm hosts that it became bad again. He had like 60 supply tied up in swarm hosts that if a single wave goes the wrong direction, then Maru just crushes it and comes across the map with a deadly counterattack. Like, he needed to trade those out for pretty much anything else, like 3-4 minutes ago. Though, I'll admit, I didn't... Why won't you die, Maru? 28 years old. I mean... which, you know, what does that say? But... Maru 2-0. And both games, right up until the last minute, maybe two, have looked either, maybe not Serral favored, but maybe trending in that direction for much of them. But at the end, it didn't matter. Okay, yeah, but wait, there's more. (2-0) for Maru, but he needs at least 2 more. And Serral has not made it easy. I feel like that game Serral played perfectly. Too perfectly. The strategy was... So... The Swarm host into eventually Broodlords, except... Well, how do you deal with Mass Thor? We're talking Mass Thor. We're talking 10 plus Thors. We're talking a girth of Thors that puts your mother to shame. Like, that is so... Neural Parasite is difficult, to say the least. As, you have to get close enough, and potentially in Siege Tank. It's not just Thors. There's a few Siege Tanks. But it was, again, another issue of strategy as opposed to speed. This is incredibly... I'm not, like... If I was high level enough to comprehend both the mind and actual games going on between these two, I would be gasping for air for lack of oxygen. That's how high level we are right now. It is going well over my head, and we're only catching the dregs. I can look at these and see so much going on. But I'd love to hear Sarah. Sarah would be like, well, I just tried to get some damage done. You know, pretty standard business. But then it didn't quite go right, and it didn't work out. It's like, okay, Sarah, can you be... Well... and then Maru would complain again about Protoss, but par for the course. Why won't Maru die? That one siege tank. It all hinged on it. The entire game. Again, another game that at the end of it comes down to one fight. It's just we didn't know it at the time. It didn't have to, but it ended up being that engagement that kind of defined the course of the rest of the game. Okay, let's try to buckle down, buckle in, buckle up. Buckle that like and subscribe button to held down. Timmy, edit that out. That was really bad. No, you're bad. 3 command centers from Maru, but he does have the 1/1/1 behind. And there's no shame, by the way. He knows that Overlord is there hanging out on the pillar, creeping everyone out, even before lair. But just using it as part of a potential wall. It's almost implied. Really, the question is whether he'll have a 4th command center, not a 3rd. Maru just keeps pushing the economic envelope, the Overton window of how many command centers you could just get away with as Terran. Eventually, the build will be 5 CCs into barracks, and somehow it'll still be safe enough. Now, this might bring up the argument of, what if we started without a full base of workers, pretty much? Which, you know, I'm willing to revive that argument. And I've come around somewhat on whether we should start necessarily with 12 workers. Even Pig recently. Now, it's really hard to get pro gamers to participate in anything that doesn't have a huge prize pool, and even if there is something that has like a $1,000 prize pool, so many players will literally not read anything and just assume it's a normal tournament. And then Pig does a tournament with like a 9-worker start or something, and players are like, oh, what the and of course, they just saw a tournament for... But now, you might blame that, but at the same time, you go back literally 15 years, yes, and watch Maru play in GSL, and you're gonna see 3CC, Barracks, Factory, Starport, Heli, and Banshee. Now, there is no Banshee here. He's going into double upgrade. How does this happen every single time? The Zerglings get in. And in fact, they might even get an SCV. They do. They see the double engineering bay. The Hellions. This is private property. Yeah, you tell them, Brenda. Oh, shut up, Susan. Don't be condescending. There's the Hellion Banshee. Though no cloak. Doesn't need it if there's no spore to protect the drones. 4 go down immediately. Gotta stay hydrated, like creep. Baneling nest. Quite a quick baneling nest. Maybe... Wait. Oh. Just making sure he's set up for any early marine drop. I'm like, does he think it's a Hellbat timing? No, he does not. The Zerglings got in, saw the double engineering bay and the barracks. And the implied reactor starport. Queen defense teams on either side. Making sure there's something to deal with the Banshees and the Hellions separately. Gotta lock in. Now imagine playing those games. Well, these two are no strangers. In fact, they're the most experienced at playing multiple hours of StarCraft 2 back-to-back and somehow only getting better with time. But most of us are more mortal, so I don't blame you for needing to take a break in between the matches. I know we've had some longer videos lately, so it's hard to concentrate, but I beg you, more than anything else, don't be that Banshee. Pay attention. Maybe mute it if you need to, but these two are playing on such a level that it's ridiculous. All right. We've had our build-up. We've had our dance back and forth. Serral's at 80 drones. He's getting a 5th hatchery. 1-1 on the way. About 30 seconds, maybe 45 behind Maru with his 2-2 upgrade started. His 2nd factory, his 4th command center. All set up, even setting up his factory as part of the wall off with the siege tank. And we've had the build-up, had the dance back and forth, a few drones dead, Hellions and Banshees as well, and now the pressure begins. Maru gonna try to keep the creep at bay. Maybe take out a few drones, shave away Lings and Banes, while building up to 200 supply and a 2-2 timing. Barracks 6, 7, and 8 coming online, but very notably, that's all happening after the 4th command center and the 2nd factory. So very clear Maru is looking for a more long-winded composition as opposed to hitting this huge marine timing. It's a much more bio-curious sort of strategy rather than focused on mass marine only. Carapace level 1 finishing up. Melee attack is already completed. Hive halfway there. So Serral will not be too far behind on upgrades, assuming he keeps up with it. Maru will take note of that. Scans as the Hive is building. Doesn't know exactly when it started, but he knows within a certain range when it can finish. Very efficient. A 3rd factory is already queued up. The Zerglings ripping down the rocks down the center. Is that a macro hatch right down in the center? Why not? As Serral once again going to be investing. Are we going to see it? He hasn't chosen any other Hive tech besides the adrenal glands. But if we're ever going to see what tech he goes for, it'd be now. 2 Vipers. Okay, well that technically counts, but I was really just waiting for the Ultralisk Cavern. Now, does he... The Ultralisks are a battering ram, which is not necessarily what you need to dismantle someone who is the best at setting up his walls. On the other side, much more pointed, Lings and Banes, and he's building 5 Dropper Lords, which is wild. He actually catches Maru's Marines and completely wipes out the double medevac drop, but down the center, clearing out some of the creep. Maru caught a little off guard. He's going to lose some momentum on the map. And Serral going to try to grab it back. Here he comes. 3 different angles. Widowmines take big bites, but Serral's going to take way more. The Hellbat's surrounded and ripped apart. The siege tank will be taken down as well, though it's going to take a lot with it. There's a planetary fortress here. Serral will overrun it, trying to drop out. There's a siege tank on the other side, making this incredibly costly to engage. He's going to get the planetary, right? But we got to ask ourselves that question. Have you liked and subscribed? And at what cost? Oh, Jimmy. So the Widow Mines still out on the field. Serral will now clear them out, though has to be a little careful. And breaking that planetary costs Serral most of the supply lead. In fact, all of it, as Maru has retaken it now. But here we go. Oh, another Widow. Oh, no, that's bad. Ooh, could have been much worse, but the bio. There's even still a Reaper here. All right. And Serral hasn't expanded down the center, instead off to the sides, knowing that Maru is likely to punch through. And the drops are loaded up. Zergling drops, so Serral not going to give Maru the target of Ultralisks to deal with. But at the same time, well, and Maru does not have a sensor tower. He doesn't know. He's going to see it momentarily. But here we go. Serral's going to engage the army while dropping into the main base. And Maru has yet to react. He hasn't spotted this. He's gone off onto the creep. His army's pulling back, but the Zerglings are already in the main. And back at home, Serral's building an Ultra Cavern. The Zerglings will drop out. The army caught on the field. And right now, a successful counterattack from Serral may set him up. Now he can't abduct the siege tanks, not since the newest patch. With a blinding cloud, he'll try to save the day. He gets the tanks out, but Maru is routed from the field. And Serral is now working on the Ultralisk Cavern. He's wiped out a lot of the entrenched position, and as he forces Maru into a more mobile composition, that's when the Ultras can find more success. A well-entrenched siege tank line jammed into these little corners of literally every ledge, every nook, every cranny. Makes it so difficult to deal with. Well, here we go again. Another wave loaded up. A single missile turret will mildly inconvenience this drop. It might take out one. But here comes Serral on the open field. Blinding cloud. That's one, that's two. A few more to fall back on. Meanwhile, the drop's in the main base, but Maru's well entrenched. He pulls back some of the bio. Siege tanks taking huge bites. Zerglings just drop right on top of the siege tanks, because why not? Makes sense. Gonna take out a couple. Gets on top of the bio. And Serral with the adrenal gland Zerglings, the adrenalings, finding a lot of success both on the field and in Maru's base. But now Daddy's coming home. 5. Ultralisk in production. The Vipers slurping out energy for another round. Has even lost one. No. This has been such a brawl. The only building that has actually died is a single planetary fortress, which was pretty uncontested in the center of the map. Some changelings sneaking through. There's a planetary boxing out over at the 3rd base. Siege tanks on the high ground. The Vipers have arrived, and the if only you could abduct, but he's gonna need the blinding clouds to deal with this. The Queen's taking the hits. And, well, Maru still making some progress. Knocks out the hatchery, but knocks down one of the medevacs. Full of Marines and Marauders. Serral has expanded over to the 9 o'clock base, but there is a lot of Maru here to contest it. Here we go, another round. And that is not enough ultras, especially the moment they step off of creep. Even though Serral is going for ultra speed, it's not done yet, and even when it is off of creep, it's almost impossible. Still no infestors. The Zerglings trying to wrap around and hold down the Marauders. And without the Marauders, the Marines only mildly scratch the carapace on those ultras. Only doing a couple damage apiece, even with +3. Now, what is that, a changeling in the main base? Wait, no. Oh, is that a burrowedling? What is happening in there? There's a burrowed Zergling covered up by the icon, which could become very relevant if there's ever a Nidus, but there is no Nidus at the moment. The Ultras. Another wave. One up. The Ultra trapped in by the Banelings, who are a little bit too intimate. Not exactly something anybody wants. Parasitic bomb on the medevacs. Quarantines one immediately. Zerglings. Overrun. Ultras chewing through. And Widowmine gets a hit. Some more units over to the right side. Knocks out a hatch, but Serral will trade and turn to the north. Nidus network is on the way. 2 more command centers from Maru. Already has 4 orbital commands and counting. How many planetaries? We got 2 of them as well. 9 SCVs dead alongside that northern base, but the Widowmines are taken out. The Vipers, enough energy for 1 parabomb, throws it out, but Maru already pre-split the medevac that was getting targeted. Another drop. Some Widowmines jammed in. We've seen Maru do glorious and disgusting work with Widowmine drops before. Zoned out by the singular queen. The Vipers, once again, will slurp some energy out of the hive. The changelings eat a Widowmine hit. Microbial Shroud is on the way, reducing all range damage under the Shroud by 50%. Very good against siege tanks. But important to note that it works both ways. And oh, the Widowmine's Banelings rolling through. A lot of damage being dealt to both sides. There's a few ghosts on the back line. They'll line up their shots, knock out one of the Ultras. Fungal interrupts a wave, but it won't save another of the Ultras on the way out as they turn tail. 110 Zerglings by Serral will refill up to 200 supply. Another wave. He's working off of 8 hatcheries. And it seems like he's quite diligent about keeping those injects up as well. He still has larvae left over after making 55 larvae of Zerglings, which is ludicrous. That's all I have to say about that. The creep continuing forward. Microbial Shroud about to complete. Liberators. Sieging up. Widowmines taking bites. Venn diagram of freedom. We'll cut off the center. Changelings added in. A single planetary here. Not going to be enough to stop this many Banelings. Not straight into range of the siege tank. Not wasting the Banelings until he really needs to. We try a burrowed Bane set? No. There's some Zerglings burrowed at most of the bases, and now down the center. Parasitic bomb. That Ghost getting trapped in a prison of his own design, chopping through the base. There's enough Ultras that Snipes are not going to be able to turn this around. Fungal thrown out to interrupt the Ghosts. But another Ultra caught on the way out. 17 SCVs dead. Maru down to 143 supply. But he's got enough in the bank. Multiple bases in the air or knocked out. Down to 50 SCVs. He has 7 orbital commands, which is good, but not overwhelming. Neural Parasite now on the way. There's still that Nidus. There's still the Zergling burrowed in the main. I have a feeling when he needs it most. I like Serral using the Nidus instead of trying to sneak it into the main. Just create the panic and be able to probably has another Nidus queued up over to the left side as well. Serral using them like that Brood War style of Nidus to protect your own bases. Meanwhile, the Ultras, Lings, and Banes. Serral maintaining 200 supply. Maru struggling to get there. It's been Ultras, Lings, and Banes the whole time. He's adding some Corruptors in to directly knock down the Liberators, as Vipers are barely a quarter measure, let alone a half one. Some more Widowmons down the center. The Ghost count is at 9. There's still a few Dropper Lords left over, but I'm not sure if Serral even remembers them. They don't show up on Select All Army key. Unless you're looking directly at them, you don't actually know. Meanwhile, just thins out the Widowmons, chops through the siege tanks. Banelings! So many Banelings rolling through, mitigating a lot of the mine hits with the Ultralisks. Kills a few more Ghosts, almost gets an incidental command center. Targeting one with the Corruptors, stutter stepping the Corruptors. One Infestor gets popped like an overripe tomato. A second one gonna be targeted by a single Marine, but he burrows it at the last second. Turns it around the corner. And is there a Liberator or something back there? Either way, the Ultras find another target. The Caustic Spray gonna melt through. The Baneling's gonna help out. The Ghosts line up a few shots. And the Widowmine takes a big bite on the way out, but doesn't quite take out the Ultralisk. Another wave of Banelings. Serral has money in the bank, and he's willing to use it. I think he correctly recognizes the advantage. Maru has not built that massive ghost ball that just Katamari rolls its way through everything. He doesn't have enough Liberators to hold down an entire location and make it impossible to attack. He's barely holding on by the skin of his probably awkwardly mediocre Terran team. The Terrans, not Maru in general. Just to be clear, I'm talking about Terrans as a people. Moving on. The Infestor throws out a Fungal. Will delay any snipes, but the Ultra's targeted down. Saves a couple Ghosts in a badly bruised medevac, but a few Zerglings down the center. Maru's running out of planetary fortresses, and that means Zerglings are able to slip through the gap, so Widowmine takes out some of the SCVs as well. Maru knocked back to 50 SCVs, whereas Serral is at 200 supply yet again. The Liberators, a single Zergling. It's too cute. Can't land on it. Burrowed underneath. There's regulations you have to maintain. Some siege tanks. Serral even splits off the Zergling. Just on fire right now. And Maru is continually getting burned. Serral has both contested bases at the 3 and 9 o'clock, give or take. And Maru has struggled to hold on to his own, that are clearly on his side of things. Might be able to attack again before the Widowmine's leading the charge. Drags out a Widowmine hit, gets another one, and another one as well. Runs right past. Liberator's going to be taken down eventually, though, doing a lot of damage in the process. Targets the Infestor as well. The Ultras come around the corner, but he has the high ground, and you should not underestimate the power of it. Still, though, Serral knocks Maru down and refills while maintaining a small but robust bank. Not enough to refill his entire army. Honestly, Serral has only 1,300 in army value. Remember game 1 where his army was 11,000 minerals and he was maxed out? That's the difference here. Less than half as much, but continually throwing waves. A 300 supply Zerg at Maru. And the Banelings are rolling through the Ghosts. They're getting dangerously close. Splitting the Banes to minimize the siege tanks. The Zerglings overrun. And Maru is pushed back. Serral just relentless. He refills yet again. 200 supply yet again. He's lost 13,000 more resources, but he's mined 15,000 more minerals and about 1,000 more gas. He's actually lost very slightly less gas overall. +3 flyer attack is now done. The flyer carapace upgrades, working on those as well. This is not a planetary, which means these SCVs are vulnerable. The siege tank even helping out. Gonna force the lift of the orbital command. I'm sure burrow a Zergling underneath. There it goes. Forces the scan. The Ultras, Lings, and Banes refilling over to the right side. And Maru has managed to scrape... Well, Maru has more army supply. Because Serral has killed so many SCVs that Maru constantly, like, 112 to 112. Dead even. But Maru cannot refill. And he's continuing... Ooh, Widow Mines doing a whole lot of damage. Maru loses, or Serral loses 30-something Zerglings before the fight even starts. But now he's looking to end it. There's a couple Infestors mixed in. But the Widow Mines, there's this... What the hell is going on there? Day 7, and they still don't know I'm not a ship container. I don't want to... Interesting doodad. 5 Widow Mines. There's still the Zergling in the main that I'm waiting for the Nidus. That Zergling doesn't have much vision, but it's enough. Or he could unburrow it and get a better spot. The Widow Mines. Oh, 18 kill Widow Mine from downtown. And that's the kind of efficiency Maru desperately needs. Relying on the Minecraft gameplay. Serral with a single Ultra chewing through the box tank. Another Widow Mine, another big hit. Another one off to the side, and Serral taking massive hits from every angle. And Maru, acutely aware of his position, will try to break through the moment that it seems like he might have an advantage. 52 more Zerglings, 15 more Banelings. The Marauders pre-splitting. Maru doesn't just dive onto the creep, but he knows he can't waste this opportunity. A single Infestor. There's still 9 orbital commands somehow, but that Infestor, Maru didn't do the due diligence of slipping by. He spots the ghost. He waits until he's out of range. Oh, it dies immediately to a siege tank. Of course it does, but the ghosts are still driven back. And Maru is knocked down to 130 supply yet again. Why won't you die? Entire wave of mules. Serral's had the income advantage, but not overwhelmingly so, because Maru has enough orbital commands to keep the mules dropping, even while siege tanks are taken out as SCVs. Cost of doing business. Serral is sending drones to Maru, which is something you so rarely see. Much more often with SCVs, but... As he's running out of minerals. Here we go again. The scans from Maru assessing the situation. Serral is mining out. But, well, there's a burrowed Zergling spotting for all this. Again, the army supply is still in favor of Maru. And any amount of Infestors taken out makes it a lot easier to find those overwhelmingly cost-effective fights. A Greater Spire's in production. We haven't seen Broodlords find overwhelming success, but they might be needed here. Especially when Maru's army is majority Widow Mines. Another hatchery taken down. Some Zerglings run by, but not quite enough Widow Mines to thin them out. No, he unburrowed the Zergling in the main, and it just kind of dies. I wish I'd missed it. That's just the saddest. I wish I hadn't seen that. I could dream that the Zergling had a heroic death instead of a painfully... Oh my. The Widow Mine... Oh, there's so many of them. Serral not... He needs to split off some Zerg... Honestly, there's so many Widow Mines scattered throughout that. It's just he can't. He's using Changelings, because Changelings, until they see an enemy unit, are still an amorphous blob trying to figure out what it is in life. Like and subscribe for Existential Dread. Marauders just pop another hatchery. And things are going from whimsical to concerning here for Serral. As once again, Maru has refused to die. He has an army that is incredibly hard to beat cost-effectively. And Serral just lost his 2 most mining bases. So he's been doing this 300 supply Zerg, but that requires the economy to support it. And now he's 17,000 minerals and a few hundred gas behind in efficiency. The Ultra count, he has 7 of them. There's only 7 ghosts, which is quite notable. That's why I noted. The Zerglings are going to overrun another base. He's not even bothering to deal with the Widow Minefield. Like, there's so many of them. There's nothing. The Brood Lords! There we are. I was wondering how, like, there's no way Sir was just going to ignore these mines, but the Brood Lords, not only do they outrange the mines, but the Broodlings themselves can trigger them easily from afar. And Maru doesn't have the money to even fill out his unit composition, let alone change it at this point. He does have 3/3 mech weapons and armor, but no ship weapons, which is different, though the Vikings will benefit from the mech armor. Maru with 150 supply and possibly the last army he'll ever get. The Zerglings, 48 Zerglings, not nearly as many as I thought. Oh my, the minefield. Maru unburrows to prevent wasting the mines on just a handful of Zerglings. Serral. The Banelings, not enough to take it out for now. Trying to find an engagement angle. The Brood Lords trundling across. There's 10 ghosts. The Infestors with the Brood Lords. Ye old Infestor Brood Lord composition. The only reliable way for Zerg to have late game options that can potentially outrange some of the strong ones from Terran. Oh no, the Infestors, not quite in position, gets a couple Broodlords sniped off immediately. And Serral has to be careful. He's turning the corner now. He's shifted into Broodlords with the last dregs of his bank. Maru, his income is... We've seen a few Mule Mountains. The Vikings, he'll just hold them in place. Wow, that armor is so good. He has +1 ranged attack, but the Viking actually survives the Queens. Neural Parasite, of course, a stun of sorts. But Maru moving up. That army just... Look at that biomass. Oh my. But the Brood Lords, all you need is... That's about the amount in order to force back the ghosts. 5 or 6 broods to make sure the Widow Mines are negated. Infestor, a couple hit by the EMP. Maru coagulating his army over on the side. And oh, not again. We're doing this again. Here we go again. Wow. The map. Wow. Are there just less bases here? The map is pretty much mined out. We're less than 30 minutes in. There's the right side, which has a couple thousand minerals. There's 1 mineral patch over to the left. Maru has no mineral patches. Oh, he has 1 mineral patch he's mining from. Like, literally, 1 mineral patch he's mining from that's close to a command center. So, Serral still has a few more. Oh, my. But neither side, I think, will max out reliably again. Serral at 194 supply with 200 minerals. Maru at 161 with 200 minerals. The Ghost getting snipes. EMP hits almost every single Infestor. A single Thor is on the way for Maru. 5 more Infestors for Serral, which is very important here. The Marauders are just the physical wall for the Broodlings. The Fungal's thrown out, and the Marauders, they're not, like, they need to cover for the Ghosts. There's some Marines behind, but here's the rest of the army. Serral just goes. Here's the Ultras, the Lings, the Banes. And the Broodlords will force him back down the ramp. The Infestors should be popping out now. The Medivacs are desperate to keep it all together. Another Broodlord popped by the Ghosts. He really wants to hold this base, but it's more important to take a better fight. The Broodlings come out. The hatchery is taken down by the wall of Marauders. But Serral, his army now. How many Overseers? He only has 3 left, which is... You know, at some point, if he runs out of Overseers, this becomes a very awkward situation. Which, it's not impossible, but you certainly don't scan. EMP, spots the Ghost, gets 2 EMPs, loses the Ghost. I mean, the energy loss is temporary, but it takes quite a while to come back. The Ghost can line up some more shots. Huge Fungal underneath, though. Interrupts most of it. What a save by the Queens. The transfuses holding it together. Another Fungal coming through. EMPs, but he chains it together. The Fungal's underneath. And he melts through absolutely everything. The Banelings just melting the entirety of the army. The Fungal holding him down. And for the first time, Serral knocking him out. The finisher strikes back. And again, for the third game in a row, on the knife edge. Stray but a little, and you may fail, but 1,211 Zerglings, hundreds of Banelings, almost 100 Widowmines, 40 siege tanks, an absolute bloodbath, and another map almost completely drained of minerals. But for the first time, Serral is the one to come out ahead. Wow. Wild. Exhausting. But we're not done yet. I feel like I need to take a breather, but also I very much don't. This is by far the highest level. Like, the technicality here is obscene. There's so much going on all the time. And a lot of it is just thinking about the future. Like, there's a lot of opportunities that seemingly remain uncapitalized on. And I don't think it's because they don't recognize them. But we're thinking of, if I take out this base or I commit this army now, in 5 minutes, will I regret it? Like, I can spend, for Maru, maybe it's sending out 2-3 medevacs, it drops. For Serral, it's committing Ultras and Banes. If I commit to taking out this base now, will it just be retaken before I can capitalize? And so many times, that's happening. And they're both just carving out bits of one another until only one is left standing. What was the difference there? Well, I think the moment... I don't think you can boil that one down to a single moment as much as the first two games. And again, not that that moment decided it, but it certainly was a inflection point in many ways. The two medevacs that Maru had on the right side of the map, that he lost all the Marines. Like, pretty early on in the mid-game, he lost those 16 supply of Marines that are usually used to divide and conquer. It is a juggling act to put the minimum amount of units out there and keep the Zerg at bay. And if you lose, if you drop the ball at any point, the Zerg can focus the rest of their efforts on defending the other side, and none of it works. Okay? Like, every Diamond Terran out there thinks they're Clem when they send out 2 medevacs, and then for some reason the Zerg crushes it or drives it back, and then they're like, well, now the Zerg has too much. Why does this work? Because it's not the one set of medevacs. It's the threat of medevacs on every front that keeps the Zerg at bay. And when you actively lose the payload of any of those, especially quickly, not like a drawn-out trade, but just die to Banelings, the Zerg immediately has a lot more space, and that's their whole thing, all right? Just expanding quickly, grabbing as much territory, as many resources as possible. And that's what Serral was able to do. Was it enough? Barely. Barely. You killed another drone. You can't be doing that. This churlish, insubordinate. Brenda, are you talking to the Reaper again? Don't give me the silent treatment. You're not a Protoss. I don't. Sorry. Maru again with the 3cc. If it ain't broke, or even if it is, then Maru will try to fix it. Another 3cc build. The fact he's getting a third command center at the same time as Serral gets a third hatchery is both very greedy and he knows what he's about. Serral's not gonna do... Well, I've been proven wrong before, but rarely. He's not gonna do a big roach all-in or a Baneling bust. Because we already saw what happens if you don't outright kill a Terran that has multiple orbital... Like, 3 orbital commands and more, they need to be effectively dead. Like, they need to be 1 base, 6 SCVs most of the time. or there's a threat of them coming back. As mules are worth about 5 SCVs mining a piece while they're mining, which does help, you know, even up the gap pretty dramatically. Of course, you have to build the orbital. They do cost energy. The orbital itself costs money, as Terrans will be very quick to remind you. But that is why when you have those 8-9 orbital commands in the bank in the late game, which even if a third of that energy is used on mules, you still have effectively like 20, maybe 30 extra SCVs of mining, assuming you still have mineral patches. And that is why the game at this extreme level seems to revolve around denying mineral patches and mining as much as you can, as opposed to outright killing workers. Killing workers is good, but it's incidental. It's actually kind of crazy how little worker kills have mattered directly in this series. Like, Clem versus Serral, we're watching drones get slaughtered left, right, and center. But Maru versus Serral is, well, collateral damage for destroying bases for the most part. 2 armories on the way. It's going to be mech yet again from Maru. The Banshee. Waiting for Cloak. The Overlord spots it, of course. Hellions darting in. Get away easily. Doesn't want to commit while the queens are there. Like, destroying 10 drones and losing 6-8 Hellions may be good now.
Mayday! Our drones are under attack.
But then you lose all the map control and the threat later on. Serral's building 2 baneling nests, which is of curious effectiveness, and a spire. And we may very well see mutas yet again, though I'm pretty confident that Serral doesn't know that this is mech. He hasn't seen the gases. This is not enough Hellions or Banshees to really tell him that he's dealing with mech. And mutas are not necessarily bad against mech, because there's literally no anti-air. Does he even have an engineering bay? He doesn't have an engineering bay. He's not building cyclones. He has 2 marines. That is the anti-air. The baneling nests will finish. Should tell you how important they are. One of those things that, like, a baneling nest costs not even half of the upgrade, but, you know, kind of an indicator of 1, how important, and 2, how stressed. So, at this stage, it's clear to Serral that he's dealing with mech. So what does he do? He's got the spire. Wait, no? Did he cancel? Where is that spire? Did he proxy it? Am I blind? Oh, it was so obvious. It's right in front of my eyes. Which, surprisingly hard to see. So, Maru scans, and he just misses the spire, because Serral very intentionally hiding it, both from me and from Maru. We're pretty much the same. We both would have lost to Serral last game. So. Meanwhile, the hit squad of Hypershees. Muta's the only unit that can reliably, and this scan also misses the spire. Beautifully done. Serral with the perfect placement on that spire. It won't be hidden for much longer, but... So, the mutas just to take out the Banshees might be worth it. But by the time they get across the map... Now, will he just take out the Banshees? He's sending them across. The queens are... Well, they get 1. They get 1. Magfield Accelerator is far off, and there's not enough Cyclones, but there are several Widow Mines mixed in. So, the mutas flapping their way in, the engineering bay finishing at a fortuitous timing. And that will mitigate a lot of the danger from the initial mutas. Though they can still very much... Brenda, what is this? This is the last time we use Apple Maps, Susan. I don't... Cancel my subscription. You know that's really hard to do, right? Well, cancel my subscription to Winter. You're subscribed to that? Okay. Sorry. Mutas relegated to dealing with a single refinery and not able to kill it. So the Mutas, he's still building them. He does have an infestation pit, but hasn't yet started the hive. Hasn't yet started. Sorry. Well, we're sending in some speed banes. There's a couple widow mines here. He tears down the wall. The banelings will get the missile. Hasn't yet started. Yes, thank you. Hive comes in. Oh, the widow mines. Hidden. But wait, there's more. The glaives didn't actually take it out, but he's finally able to take out the refinery, which is something. But the mutas not quite finding the damage. Serral doubles down. He's at 20 mutas. He's got 94 drones. But Maru has been mostly untouched. He's going to have 2-2 mech with all the factories, a 4th base, gas mining across the board. He's got 84 SCVs. Almost said drones, which wouldn't make any sense.
SCV ready.
A scan for Maru will spot the main base as well. Muta's trying to find almost literally anything at this point. But with Thors and Cyclones and Widow Mines kind of scattered throughout, they'll be able to get everything around the edges of the perimeter. But Serral needs to be careful to not leave himself in the same scenario he was against Mech on 10,000 feet, which is having a good army, but not good enough before Maru's maxed out army just kind of punches through the entire map. And the mutas definitely fall into that category, where if you don't make use of them relatively quickly, they are a liability. They are almost a waste of army supply. I wouldn't go that far, but he has right now 40 supply of army, almost half. Well, that's one way to cut down on it. Slightly less than half now. But unfortunately, didn't catch the Banshees on the other side. The Cyclones will help Serral out with his muta problem. And whether he likes it or not, he will be refilling that supply, and none of it in mutas. Like, just knocked out of the sky with ease as the Cyclones lock on and just brutalize the mutas. Ooh. Anti-armor missile softens up the Banes of... I mean, it'll help a bit. The Banshees down the center. There's enough mutas left over. Defending against the Banshees might be what they're relegated to. Here comes Serral trying to break through. There's no siege tanks here, just Widow Mine. Splits well. Single Thor trying to hold it down in the back line. The Banelings of medium success. The mutas will find an entire chain of command centers over here. And they're dead. They're gone. Meanwhile, the Queens try to hold on. The Ravagers Dorito dusted, which makes them look angry and orange, as opposed to just one or the other. The Zerglings will eventually overrun the Thors. Maybe get the Cyclones as well, though he leaves the Thor alone for long enough to slaughter one Queen, working on the other. The Banshees are able to work their way around, and it might be enough. Maru continually rallying across, but, well, it wasn't an overwhelming victory for Maru or Serral. But over the last 90 seconds, Maru has destroyed over 9,000 minerals and 4,300 gas, to Serral with 4,500, 2,000. That is clearly an overwhelming disparity. Maru is getting not 1, but 2 fusion cores. Much like Serral's Baneling nest earlier, so I think we'll call it out just as hard, right? Fusion cores cost even more, but in this very well could be a battlecruiser game. Honestly, it is. He's going battle against someone who, yes, he has a Spire, but is relying on Ravager, Ling, Infest, or just Mass Banshee, but that would be boring. Come on, Maru. Well, he's losing this brawl out on the open field. The Thors, Cyclones, and Hellbats dueling with Ravagers, Lings, and Infestors, but again, the Banshees just rack it. 13 kills. They snipe off another hatchery. Fungal comes through. The Queen's wandering down. Saves the Thor, but ties up the drop. The Queens trying to target down the medevac, but unfortunately lost their ability to fly a long time ago. Serral has to rebuild some overlords because in the fray here. And 2 battle cruisers are in production as Maru is prepared to go all the way. And the battle cruisers, not just for styling, but in a situation where Serral has completely cut air units out of the composition. He has barely any anti-air. He technically has Neural Parasite, but honestly, Neural Parasite on battlecruisers is not nearly as good as it seems. Why? Because if you don't have Corruptors, you still have nothing that can kill the battlecruiser besides maybe Ravagers with Corrosive Bile. So it just kind of stalls the problem as opposed to solves it. So, still though, Serral is maxed out. The fact that Maru is continually trading with him on the open field is making it his prospects look very difficult here. He Neural Parasites a Thor, doesn't target it with the other Thor, and that means, well, Thors are very good against Thors. Yeah, hit each other. Stop hitting each other. Well, knocks him out with Corrosive Bile, which is, you know, something you can do. And Serral actually takes quite a decisive victory on the field. There is a planetary in the top left corner. Maru has not gone for the building armor upgrades, which is quite an issue here. Meanwhile, the Banshees, the battle cruisers, and he's building more. Get him out. All right, he doesn't want to see the battle cruisers jump. He knows how. So here's the thing. That one Zergling, we're going to the Serral cam. He spotted it. He spotted it. Builds 1 Corruptor. He's maxed out. He's suffering from success. Oh no, what a timing. Another one. Get them both out. At least it wasn't right before a massive fight. So here's the thing about the battlecruisers, is the moment he spots the infestors, he just jumps to the other side. The Neural Parasite is even cast. It costs the energy and breaks immediately. He has Neural... Oh, watch out, watch out, watch out! But from downtown, the Immortal Cannons! A full volley obliterates the Queens, takes out the hatch, and casually strolls away. Because, and this is true, infestors cannot be in 2 places at once. The battlecruisers also cannot, but it's a lot closer. And with the scans to clear the way, it's almost impossible to catch them directly. Are these the... Don't tell me these are the same Banshees. 16 kills, 19 kills. Those are the same Banshees. Oh my god. They won't stop. They can't stop. There's 1 Corruptor. Serral unwilling to trade out too much here, but he has to be careful that he's not... He's maybe underestimating Maru's commitment. There's 4 battle cruisers now. He doesn't... You need several times over the Corruptor count. And the battle cruisers are just uncontested. He's building 10 Corruptors. But the Banshee's still going. Fires off, and Maru micros it away. 1 battle cruiser has a jump, gets away. 4 more over to the left side. Tactical jump is ready. He spots the Corruptors. He can just waltz away. He's building more battle cruisers. Fires off the Yamatos. And he jumps. Oh, come on. Battle cruiser gets away with more than none HP, and that's all that matters. So far, Maru has lost 0 battle cruisers. Serral's still technically maxed out, but I've never seen 200 supply look so sad. Well, at least since I last played, but... And Maru doesn't even have that much in the bank. It's just... How do you deal... So, a big struggle with the battle cruisers is if you go too quickly for them, then the Zerg just knocks them out of the sky, and then you've invested an obscene amount of money into something that doesn't work out. But now, like, mass Ravager Infestor is going to be the intent. But there's only 2 Infestors and 15 Corruptors. I don't even know if that's enough to fight the battle cruisers on their own. They have +2, 3. The Corruptors do not have Carapace upgrades. They only have attack. They just finished +1 Carapace, which means that the battlecruiser attack is actually quite effective against them. Armor helps out a lot against it. The Ravagers find another base, but And at this point, he's just going to continue scanning from any vulnerable angle. He spots an infestor. There's 8 orbital commands. 9 battle cruisers. And Serral's struggling to deal with the ground army, let alone the cruisers. Oh, here we go. Serral just types GG, doesn't even engage, and how would you? How could you? Maru with battle cruisers. The exclamation point at the end of the death sentence. He loses 0 of them. And that puts him on match point. In dramatic fashion. I mean, a incredible choice. A deadly one. And now, Serral once again on the edge of being knocked out by Maru. I don't know if Maru... So, throughout their history, throughout probably... Serral has been at the highest level for not quite as long, though probably burned a little brighter there. I don't know if there's ever been multiple best of 7s that Maru has won in a row. Serral has won 2/3 to 3/4 of their matches. I don't know the exact count. I think Jimmy showed it at the beginning, but Serral, part of the reason why most people don't consider Maru in a real competition with Serral as the greatest of all time is Serral has simply won over 3/4 of their matches together. While Maru has an accomplished history when he got close to winning the world championship, Oliveira in his most incredible run. We're going to talk about this in a moment, all right? Just hold your horses and your comments. But Maru, when it mattered most, was unable to convert. In that, without even a world championship. I know, right? But Maru certainly unwilling to give up the conversation yet. As in absolutely typical Maru fashion, he's gonna go with the proxy racks. Of course he is. Is this proxy Reaper? No? This is something different. Okay, what is this, Maru? What are you doing? Hello? It's a bunker rush into a factory fight. Maru's already planning the next level of this cheese. But here's the thing, is Serral went pool first, which is a hard counter. This is the worst case scenario for Maru, as the Zerglings are already out. Possibly predicting exactly this, as Maru's unpredictable cheeses are kind of predictable in and of themselves. The problem is that it's just slowlings. So he may delay the bunker, but he's gonna lose some nice Zergling micro there. But awkwardly, because the hatchery is slightly delayed, means the bunkers have a little more time to come together. And back at home, Maru has started a factory. The Overlord's gonna spot it. It's right there. And if he takes out the SCVs, he completely delays this, but he's gonna have to pull drones, which is an awkward start to say the least, targeting another SCV. One goes down, the second SCV being targeted by the Queen, and that's a huge deal. That's absolutely massive, especially with the Spine Crawler ambling its way down the ramp. It should be able to hold this down. Another SCV is sent out by Maru, who wasn't willing to let this go so easily. But the Spine Crawler, the backbone of the defense, will be enough to stop him for now. Now, the barracks lord... Well, thought it was safe for about 2 seconds. One Overlord taken out, the other one on the run. Does not run fast. Or at all, really. That is... Wow, 2 Overlords down will severely hamper Serral's attempts to convert this into some sort of counterattack. Not that that was the focus, but it certainly doesn't help. And Serral actually comes away with less workers here. That's enough Zergling. Well, okay. What do we got? 13 versus 7. That's enough Marines that Slowlings are not going to cut it. And Maru will. Oh, Maru. Maru is 3 CC before Serral takes the third edge. He knows what he can get away with. Murder. Oh, my. Of course he does. Oh, Maru. Liberator. It's going to be a 3-2-1-1, just not the usual methodology, to say the least. He's going to have 3 command centers, 2 racks, a factory, and a starport. But a Hellion drop is on the way. A clever move, though it looks like Serral anticipating it to some extent, as the Zerglings kind of splitting the difference. And with the drop coming in, he's definitely going to know, of course. In fact, maybe just hiding so he has a better chance of taking out the medevac. But the Zerglings taking their sweet time. And, well, the medevac gets taken down. 7 drones dead, but it's cleaned up immediately. And he lost everything. So, every other game, Maru has been able to keep the pressure on with Hellions and his starport units. This time around, he trades them, which gives Serral a very clear position. Yeah, the Hellions are going to make it impossible there. And it's going to be mech. Yet again. Despite the 2 racks, in fact, Maru was probably... He's decided to swerve into the drive-thru of McDonald's. The Liberator is a curiously effective choice. And the Queen's going to force it away. Serral with some stop position on the drones. And now demonstrating it very technically has an anti-air attack, which the Overlord does not. It shouldn't be able to kill it before the Queen save it. Yeah, the Liberator moves past. Not going to bother with that, but... Now the factory's on the way. 3, 4 more in production? Well, wait. Yes. And using the barracks to create the add-ons and hand them off to the racks. Or the factories, rather. +1 mecha weapons and armor. Now on the way. +1 carapace for Serral. So, overall, I'd say Serral got the better end of it. Especially, the Hellion drop, a good idea, but the fact that he took it out so quickly, even with a few kills, really freed up the space for Serral to just grab his chunk of the map so far and continue expanding forward. The creep continuing to spread. And he didn't have that many queens. 6 queens now, but... obviously, when you start with a second hatch delayed, let alone third, it takes a bit longer to get to that stage. The Hellions and Cyclones. It's going to be Hell Clones yet again, but no siege tanks to back them up. Serral not getting too greedy. Oh, awkward angle here as the Queen stumbles through. The Hellions trying to take advantage. The drones get pulled off the line, and Maru was going to try to incinerate them there. And is this the first time Serral's going to be short its mech? Indeed. Though he may have had his suspicions. The double armor gives it all away. He doesn't need to know anything else. Though he wouldn't necessarily say no to it. 4th command center for Maru. Blue Flame not quite done. Doesn't overextend with the Hellions, or does he? The Zerglings wrap around. And Hellbats, but, well, the Banelings going to be used. And now it's just the Cyclones, and a pretty big mistake out of Maru. Digging too deep and too greedily. Onto the creep with the Hellions, and then rallying the Cyclones across. And just needs to scratch the rocks there. Anyone? 12 HP? Oh my god, don't do it. he just quick the banelings. I mean, it wouldn't have been much of a waste, but it would have been a waste. Which Serral cannot abide. Another Overseer locked on with multiple. So, Cyclones will not lock on with multiple unless you do it manually. The auto lock on will only be 1 per unit. How efficient. But you can manually lock on with as many Cyclones are in range and off cooldown. So whenever you see 10 Cyclones on a hatchery, that's holding down that lock-on key, usually with rapid fire. There you go. And the lock-on does significantly more damage, as well as being able to attack while moving, and being an ability or a spell, which means that armor does nothing. Goes right through it. But, oh wait! It's a trap! Here comes Serral! He wraps around with the Zerglings. Maru's actually able to break through and somehow evades total annihilation. But, the Zerglings wrap around and hold him down, and he gets another chunk of the Hell Clones. And Serral's just, well, pretty much getting whatever he wants behind. The Spire, the Hive, Burrow, Neural Parasite. Maru has a 4th base. He's so greedy that he catches up very quickly. Like, he's not bothering to worry about whether or not he can. He just will. And Serral has been unable to reliably limit the economy, even in the game he's won, where it took until the obscene extreme late game to finally kind of checkmate Maru. And again, fool me once, and he will get fooled again. Again, Maru, he goes through the trees, and on the other side, the roaches were waiting. Roaches and Banes to the south, lining up to potentially obliterate the mineral line, whereas Serral continually defending his bases to the north. The creep spread has been mostly pushed back, and it would help a lot, but it doesn't seem to be necessary here. +2 mech armor about to complete. A few Hellions just running through while the main army makes its way to the north side. And the Banelings rolling into the 3rd. Mitigates the damage somewhat with the runaway there. A lot of damage on the orbital as well, but the Hellions are shut down by the Queens. Meanwhile, another wave of Banelings. As Serral, Maru looking the other way. It's a little too late, and now he's super dead. 28 SCVs dead. And that is critical damage. Up until now, not so much. But the Liberator is a little bit too slow on moving away. The drones more than fast enough. Burrow in order to deny the bases. But Serral has gained all the momentum. He's got a hive. He's got half the map. And he's probably got the greatest lead he's had in this series so far. But can he capitalize? There are 5 siege tanks in production, +3 mech weapons, even more command centers, because Maru will not stop building command centers until you rip them out of his cold and very dead hands. A Ghost Academy is on the way. He's gonna go Ghost mech. Not willing to rely entirely. Well, Infestors becoming an existential threat well before the Ghost can hit the field. Locks down the Cyclones and rips them apart. 1 will be chased over to the 3rd. The command center's already on the run. A couple siege tanks, but there's already a Greater Spire on the way as well. Meanwhile, and towards the north side, some Zerglings incinerated. But Serral has knocked Maru out of his 3rd, and 15 more SCVs with it. The engineering bay will be taken down, which doesn't help things. Gonna rebuild, well, we thought about rebuilding it. But Serral is maxed out. And there's no caveats there. He has the tech, he has the upgrades. He already has Infestors gaining multiple fungals of energy. Might even consider Microbial Shroud, but let's not get too crazy here. Meanwhile, he will burrow, though has to be a little careful of burrowing forward. Don't do that. Oh my, I'm so stressed. It worked out though, Neural Parasite on the siege tanks. Will turn him against Maru, who just abandons the base completely. Though, the siege tanks will actually come out of Neural Parasite and have to be dealt with. He holds it down again. Meanwhile, the Hellions trying to get some counter damage. Already 16 drones dead. The Hellions incinerated the entirety of the northern base. More Hell Clones going by, and Serral will be losing a lot of drones here, replacing them immediately. And Maru took way more damage throughout this, especially once these cyclones get taken out. And they will be taken out by just Zerglings and a drone getting in on the action because, you know, don't leave us out. 27 drones dead. Serral plummets to a 30 drone lead. An orbital command is burning, and I feel like that describes the whole game right now. Carrick is burning. And Maru with it. Ravagers, Lings, Roaches. Well, that didn't go great. Without Vipers, without Broodlords, half a dozen siege tanks with +3 mech weapons is a little bit too hot to handle. Let alone the Hellbats to help out. Adrenalan's about to complete +3 ranged attack as well for Serral. He runs the slight risk of overextending, but I'm sure he's aware of the pitfalls of the situation. No one, literally no one, is better at recognizing the state of the game. I'd say of anyone in the entire game, though the second best is opposite him right now. That doesn't always mean he can translate it into a victory easily or immediately or even at all. But I don't think any other player as reliably makes the right choices. It's just when Serral loses, it feels like they didn't come together quickly enough. Or well enough. Why are there Reapers here? Did he misclick his ghosts? No, Maru's pioneering the 10 Reaper hit squad in the late game, like they had their grenades still. But now we have 8 Broodlords. Microbial Shroud is on the way. Serral expanding to the 6 o'clock with no shame. The Ghost looking for a massive EMP. Fungal will not interrupt it. So, the Broodlords. And what anti-air is there? 4 Ghosts. 2 Marines. Full stop. And whatever missile turrets, I guess. But abandon your posts! Flee! Flee for your lives! Again, the SCVs are evacuated. But to where? Serral's expanding to the north as well. Maru is running out of real estate, but his supply is as high as it's probably ever going to get. Thors and Vikings in production. The Nordic composition, which Serral should be well versed in. Here we go again. Bob, there's a hatchery there again. Just fly. All right, that's what we pay you for. I don't get paid at all. I don't. Infestor brood. Those infestors have max energy. The siege tank obliterates the ghost as the broodlings get too close. He neuroparasites the Vikings, and they will take down the orbital command while dying to corrosive bile. Huge, huge EMPs. But one fungal will interrupt some of it. Serral actually moved command to the Broodlords, which means a lot of them will die almost immediately to the Thors. And oh no, it's a disaster for Serral. He stumbled into the fight. The EMP wiped out the energy on the infestors. The Broodlords were not spewing out their broodlings, so the Thors were able to get a few seconds of damage untouched. The Viper did nothing. It still has full energy and it's on the run, and it's lucky the Ghosts don't have enough energy to chase it. But again, Maru has been able to power through, and Maru is trying to turn it into a victory right here, right now, right here, and right now. But Serral has refilled. Unlike Swarm hosts, he rebuilt Roaches, Lings, and Banes. Does he still have the Viper? When the army fell, where was the Viper? When Maru moved across the map, where was the Viper? When the siege tanks assailed the last hatcheries, where, pray tell, was the Viper? Serral calls, and the Viper will answer. Here we go. The backline, the blinding cloud on 3 siege tanks. The Thor's looking the wrong way, and when he needed it most, the Viper came through. He forces the Thors back. Maru, throughout all this, he lost all of his SCVs. He was focused 100% just like us on the fight, and now he has no home to go back to. The last push, another wave of Ravagers being built potentially under siege tank fire. The Viper was killed, making it difficult to dislodge, but far from impossible, and Maru has nothing in production. This is everything. But I don't think it's enough. He's juggling Thors out of corrosive bile. But all of them in the red, not quite dead. But even if he drops mules, he doesn't have the minerals to repair. Serral has 18 more roaches and 14 more lings in production, and he's still... Oh, those are GG neural parasites right there. Take a look. It doesn't matter. GG! Serral strikes back with a extended series of top-tier fights and one very poor one. It almost cost him everything. But he was able to... He built up enough of a bank, and he had the unit composition to rebuild before Maru could carry the momentum across the map. But again, Maru refuses to die. And Serral forces the issue. I've seen tournaments play out in less time than this series. And we're not done. Maru's still on match point, as he will be throughout, but Serral showing that he can turn it. And Maru tried his trademarked proxy. Oh, not again. Are you in... Maru. Wait, oh. Okay, he's gonna wall the front. Wait, no? Yes? No? Oh, Maru! Where are you going? Come back here! Come back here, not so young man. Well, if at first your cheese doesn't succeed, try it on a barcode 50 more times on the ladder. Or try again, I guess. I did. Is he saying it's not the build? It was. So we got very unlucky. And I'm going to call it that. Like, I don't know how much was Serral predicting the early cheese out of Maru. You know, I wouldn't put it past him. I certainly wouldn't. But the fact that Serral went pool first and had Zerglings as the first units, as the first Marines and SCVs were coming in, well, it doesn't get... He still did quite well with it, despite it being almost the worst case scenario. Worst case would be Serral going Zergling speed, which would have been a massive risk without scouting this. But it's the same build. It's, going to be the 2 racks Marine into a factory yet again. Serral is moving his Overlord, but by the time it spots this, the barracks will be done. This will give him... Oh, he went for the greediest pool as well. Oh my. Oh no. Oh yeah, I mean, like, even if... well, the drones are gonna have to be pulled. He's already queuing up. He's got drones hotkey. Yep. Well, here we go. The drones off the line, the SCVs at the front, and the workers will be voting it out. The bunker's on the way. Serral is once again under attack at the 2-minute mark. And once again, he must hold. Drone's already taken a lot of damage. It's gonna be a while till the Zerglings come out to help. One is taken out, some mineral walking. Gets a little bit of a surround, but this is so costly. He's already lost 4 drones. The SCV kind of maneuvering to 6 drones. That's a lot of damage. Serral's at the drone count he started with, which is certainly not ideal. In fact, the bunker's gonna finish, though he might be able to keep any Marines from getting in, so negating a lot of the effectiveness there. But anything that ties up the Zerglings for a little bit longer. All right, well, the Queen and the Spinecrawler are out. Serral building another Queen, because he knows, like, well, as soon as he sees this, he's pulling back the Overlord knowing this is the risk. And he'll be able to protect it for now. Maru just started his 2nd command center, which means the 3rd is probably not too far off. There's not enough Marines. So, okay, 5 Marines versus 8 Lings. Again, it's just it's just barely enough. Let alone if he pulls SCVs. But if you double their number, it depends on positioning. If they have more than half, then it should be enough to deal with it, especially slow Lings, of course. That was better for Maru than the previous game. It definitely turns out better. And wow, there's absolutely no shame. He built it. I'm reasonably sure he knew the Overlord was there. He just builds a 3rd command center. Maru, again. Like, what are you gonna do about it? Really, that real question. Not rhetorical. What are you going to do about it? We haven't seen Serral go for a single all-in this entire series. A single Hellion is hunting down all of the Zerglings. Grab your emotional support Zergling today. Oh my. Every single one of them. They killed the women and the childrenlings too. The Terrans with no mercy. Not an incredible... Maru with... He's now shifted from one of the cheesiest plays to the most greedy one. And Serral's not going to call him on it. He's not going to risk it. It's going to be double engineering bay. 3cc. The third CC before Serral's third. He's caught up in the worker count with injects. But he's going to have to rebuild some lanes, as the Hellions are a real threat. He can't afford to take any more losses. Not for the next several minutes, or that'll put him almost unfathomably behind. Serral building enough lanes to potentially muck up the Hellion pathing. Spinecrawler repositions as close to the third as possible to zone out. The Overlord will spot the Hellions and moves the spine and pushes the creep out at an inopportune time. The Queen's completely out of energy. It's been a very tiring series. How do you know that, Brenda? What is a series? Oh, don't worry about it, Susan. My sweet hatchery child. That... what? Sorry. Hive Mind took a... Maru's just gonna take the third. Gambling just a little that there's not enough lanes to counterattack, and even then, worst case scenario, he loses a few SCVs and knows how many Zerglings that Serral has built. Maru has almost every... has it been every other game? Almost. This is game 6, and I think we've seen 3 games of Bio. This will be a 3rd game of Bio. And 3 games of Mech. Though, if the game goes on long enough, it gets a little muddied, for sure. Lair is mostly done, but the 1-1 upgrades, the upgrades are going to be so far ahead. Maru with a curious depot placement in the midst of the main. And you can lower the depot. It just chooses not to. Bespoke depot. Kind of like, reminds me of the AI and how it places its depots in such efficient positions, and then pretty much every Terran up to Platinum League who plays against the AI a bunch thinks that's how you're supposed to do it. And you know, why not? Why not? Less likely to be lost. More quarantine zones. But I digress. There's more dramatic things to talk about, like this push out. As Serral only has a few more workers. He doesn't have baneling speed, and he doesn't have any upgrades. The +1 carapace is about to complete. He's going to be fighting from a near desperate position for the foreseeable future. As Maru's got all the cards right now. Fortunately for Serral, he forgot Combat Shield is the only plus side. The Spinecrawler will be gunned down almost instantly. The Banelings looking for their opportunity. Really doesn't want to give up this 4th base. He doesn't get a choice. He doesn't cancel. He just picks up and gets out. He'll get the Hellbats, which sacrificed. But, yeah, Maru gets the 4th hatchery. He's got a 4th command center first now. Of course, he forced that issue. But starts Combat Shield, so that will be about 30-45 seconds delayed, which is a pretty big win for Serral. Unforced error there, but we'll see if he can capitalize on it. Meanwhile, the drop spotted. Serral very, very much recognizing that there's a possibility out there. The drops are chasing the lings, which is kind of terrifying. Terranifying, if you would. I wouldn't, because that was really dumb, but... A Dropper Lord on the way. Interesting. Maybe a Baneling drop? Gotta pull out some very cost-effective stops here if you're Serral, because Maru's gonna have 2-2. Like, a hive has started. He's rushing to hive to try to counteract the advantages that Maru has carved out. But the cancel, that wasn't a very... That was a plot armor bullet there. Just cancels a hatch upon first sight. Jimmy Raynor probably would have, not you, carried that one. You know he has all the bullets for the job. Always amusing to figure out which one's going to be the most relevant. The Baneling drop. Queued up. And Maru does have a sensor tower, but Serral could just go into the main. The creep extending out as far as Serral can get it on the edge of these Marines. Going to force it out. The Baneling drop headed in. There is a siege tank, so he does need to drop it ideally right on top. Maru looking the other way. And the Baneling drop going to be entirely successful. Wildly so. 12 SCVs dead. 13 in total. That is exactly what Serral needed to keep himself going. Brendan, no! No, not again! Ah, son of a... Queen taking the wrong path, a little off the creep, because they don't actually calculate that in when it comes to the pathing. And it's 2-2 versus 1-2. So not a desperate, just a difficult situation for Serral. He's got Vipers on the way. The Lings and Bangs closing in, tries to drag out the Widowmines with the Marines. Oh, the Widowmine from downtown and a 40 supply gap has opened up. Serral without ultras on the way, just adrenal glands for the late game, but another hatchery is taken down, and Serral's chances, drastic, go down alongside it. Maru up 40 supply, he's working on 3-3. Serral is heading towards +2 attack. No +3 carapace, no other tech besides Vipers and adrenal glands, which are of dubious effectiveness in this sort of scenario. There are a few siege tanks mixed in, but the Vipers... they might not be enough. The drop denied. He sacrificed a couple Marines to make sure the creep tumors are shut down. The Queen's struggling to get anything out there. That Baneling drop was the only thing that really kept Maru from running Serral over already. But he didn't stop the train, he just slowed it down. And there's still... oh no. Does he remember the mines? Does it matter? And the Zerglings will rotate around. The Marauders out in front, the Widow Mines dragged out. Oh, it's a disaster. Parasitic Bomb, helpful. Not helpful enough. The Viper getting a little bit too close, another Parabomb, doubles up. But it's not quite enough to kill these medevacs, though there's nothing left for them to heal. Serral with about as good of a cleanup as I guess you could ever dream of. But it's turning into nightmares across the board still. A massive supply lead for Maru. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. There's no unit composition. It's not getting really any better. Whereas Maru's working on 3-3. The Widow Mines, the Queen's taking it, which is, I guess, best case. Baneling's rolling through. The Marauders out in front. The Queens might be able to take down some more of the medevacs. But there's enough underneath. He just takes out a hatchery. He's just brawling his way through and punching down hatcheries in the process. And even though Serral will hold, there's no hope of pushing back right now. It's looking almost impossible. And for the first game, looking almost more one-sided than a Mobius strip right now. And of all the games for it to be, Maru with the second double racks play. The proxy directly into the 3cc double upgrade. Swinging the whiplash strategy. Going from full aggression to anything but. But GG. Moving on directly to the finals of Pigsty Festival 7. It'll be... wait, no, semifinals. Semifinals. This is upper bracket semifinals. I got ahead of myself. We have Maru. Now on Team Onside, as opposed to Vitality. I think it's important to note. But Serral putting up a gargantuan fight. An absolute slobber knocker. A complete and comprehensive Zerg versus Terran series. And Maru is able to show it wasn't a fluke, but instead a trend. Is Terran enough to hold on against the finisher? Wow. Easily. Like, Serral versus Clem might be the bleeding edge of top-notch StarCraft. But this was something different. This was the highest level. That might be the clickbait we use or something similar, but you made it this far. It was obviously, hopefully deserving of the title. I cannot... They just keep getting better. Maru is using all those little advantages, using the map to his advantage. Serral trying to rip it apart constantly. But the most strategic series. Gonna need some time to recover from that one. That's what I said on the last 3-hour series, but here we are. So thank you again to Pig for putting on these amazing tournaments. Make sure to support him and the Pigsty Festival so you can put him on. We make him just put him on every month, okay? See it every month, Pig. Okay, maybe every 2. Let's not get greedy. Too much bacon is probably bad for you. But you know what isn't? If you got the means of motivation, checking out Patreon or YouTube membership, but I hear liking and subscribing is still free. At least for now. Thank you to our meal tier patrons for bringing us the extra minerals. Big Jiggy, Devin Door, Kate, Mario, Suit. Glad you still enjoy. And to everyone, make sure to check out this video Jimmy picked out just for you, or finish up that 3.5-hour GSL video also featuring Maru. I'm saying that because it's probably this one coming up there, but otherwise, thank you for watching. Hopefully I made a pretty big chunk of your day or days just a little bit better. I hope to see you next time. Good luck. Have fun. Oh yeah, we're going to be continuing the Pigsty Festival games for the most part. So hopefully in order. Hopefully you watch this first. Otherwise, well, still worth it though, right? Stay tuned.